Okay, welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Town of Lake Cowichan Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at 5 p.m. It's being held and transmitted electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road. Just moving on to the agenda, any late agenda items? Mayor McGonigal.
I do have two for you tonight, Chair. First of all is a leave of absence for Councillor Vomaka. So that would be B under new business, please. And under C, a council resolution to reimburse expenses for our interim CAO as outlined in the fee proposal that was provided to us. So those two items, please.
Anything else? No? Okay, would anyone like to move the agenda for approval? Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Councillor Austin. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Okay, first up we have public input. So if anyone would like to speak to us about anything that is on the agenda items tonight, you may do so at the speaker up there. Just ask that you state your name. You've got 3 minutes to talk. And that's it. Is anyone willing to talk tonight? Yep, if you want to go up there, mate.
And I'd like to talk about the bylaw everybody knows about, and that we're going through a variance process, and we're just wondering if there's any way of expediting the variance process so we can get back to construction as soon as possible. And do you have any idea on how long the variance will take to get a variance so we can start building?
Okay, when the agenda item comes up tonight, we'll talk to our CAO about exactly what that looks like.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to give you answers at that time.
Okay.
That's all good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Oh, there was one agenda item that I've just missed that I'd like to take off, which is the parking at Cowichan Cottages, 71 South Shore Road. Do I need to get that approved? Can I get that amendment approved? Councillor Sandhu, seconded by Mayor McGonigal. All those in favour? Thank you for that, guys. My apologies. Next up, we have minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting. That is just for information. Is there any discussion on that? No? Next up, we'll move to business arising in unfinished business. So this is one of my agenda items. It is a remediation of the nuisance property at 63 Cowichan Lake Road. I see that work has started there again in some form. It has been a nuisance property for as long as I've been on council. Is there anything that you could add, Mr. Brown, anything to do with that 63 Cowichan Lake Road?
Thank you, Chair Frisbee. Yes, I've been discussing this item with our contract planner, Bridget Nelson. Unfortunately, she wasn't available to attend this evening. However, she has informed me that she has talked to the building inspector, a bylaw enforcement officer, as well as the owner. He's aware of the necessity to be active with work during the development permit. And since he has an active development permit, the unsightly premises bylaw can still be invoked, but it's likely that staff would recommend that we wait until we see how he's progressing with his development permit. There's a number of conditions that council through the development permit imposed that staff is working with the developer and private owner, property owner to ensure that he complies. So what I can do is circle back with our planner and have a report for the next council meeting on the 27th as to that progress.
Mayor McGonigal, do you have something?
Thank you. Through you, if I may, to the CAO. I know there's a time limit on building permits. Is there such a time limit on development permits as well? For instance, 2 years for a building permit, you would have to reapply if you hadn't accommodated building by then. Is there a similar requirement within a development permit in a DPA area?
Yes, through the chair, there is an expiration date on development permit, and unfortunately, I don't know what that date is, but I know it's coming up soon.
So if I may continue through you, perhaps if we had that information that came back to council, it would give us a better idea of the plan moving forward. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, I just see today that he's pressure washing the paint off the side of the building with no protection to the public, but I guess that's a WCB issue. But yeah, if you could come back with information on that, it would be great because it's she's a dragon. Next up, we have delegations and representation. We have Watt Consulting Group here, who are going to present on the Uptown area parking study. Just for anyone who is a delegation tonight, is it 10 minutes? 10 minutes limit, and if you need more time, just feel free to reach out and we can extend you. So welcome, guys.
Great. Good evening. Thank you very much, Chair Frisbee and Mayor and Council. Very nice to be here. My name is Tim Shaw. I'm a Senior Transportation Planner with Watt Consulting Group and led the Uptown Parking Study for the town of Lake Cowichan. I'm joined by my colleague Matthew Lilly, who did a lot of the heavy lifting as well on this project with data collection and analysis. So today we're going to, yeah, can you hear? Sure. How's that? Is that better? Yeah. Excellent. So yeah, really nice to be here. Purpose of tonight is, yeah, we're going to provide a presentation on the study in terms of what we found and what we did. And with that, if you can go to the next slide, please. All righty. So for the agenda for our presentation, we'll start off with the purpose of the project and the objectives. We'll get into the data and the analysis in terms of what we collected, what we found. Then we'll talk about the strategy toolkit. So essentially the overall framework for the study. Then touch on the summary of recommendations, and then we'll conclude with next steps. And Chair Frisbee, I should say as well, that we'll definitely need more than 10 minutes. We got quite a bit of content to get through, data, numbers, recommendations, but hopefully it'll be fairly comprehensive and we'll give you a very good sense of what we found and what we did. Next slide. So in terms of the purpose of this project, the purpose really of the study was to determine whether the Uptown area needs to increase its parking capacity or whether existing parking supplies are sufficient. That's really what we set out to do here. 3 specific project objectives. The first was to determine the existing parking capacity of the Uptown area. Secondly, understand whether parking demand is temporal in nature, including how parking conditions change over the course of the day and by season. And thirdly, to recommend a suite of parking management tools and infrastructure improvements that can address both current and future parking challenges. Next slide. So in terms of where, a map is always super handy to have, especially in a project like this. That might be a bit tricky to see, so apologize, but the green dash line there is showing you the Uptown area. And then we have the study area is a black dash line. So again, a bit hard to see, but you can see at least on the sort of southwestern portion there of the map is Point Ideal Drive. So extending all the way there to the baseball diamond. And then, the northern boundary, essentially South Shore Road. And then off to the eastern boundary there is King George. And I think that gives you a pretty good sense of the area here. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague Matthew, who's going to walk you through the methodology and the analysis and what we found.
Thank you, Tim. We essentially went throughout the community on 3 different days, the 3rd of August, the 14th of August, and the 5th of October. And we counted up the number of parked vehicles on the street, as well as within the public and private lots that were contained within the study area. We also ran an intercept survey to get public consultation, where we would talk to various business owners, citizens within area as well as people who were visiting. And then we did a best practices scan, which was to validate results of the study and review best practices and recommendations from other communities and other studies of this nature. Next slide, please. So several different bits of nomenclature. Parking occupancy is the number of vehicles that are parked within an area and comparing that to the number of available parking spaces. Parking duration is the total duration of time that a vehicle occupies a parking space. So if you have 10 vehicles that are parked for an average of 4 hours, then you would see 4 as being your sort of duration. And parking turnover is the number of vehicles that are parked within the parking spaces for the amount of time. And this is talked about as vehicles parked per space. Next slide, please. So we ran an assessment of all of the available parking spaces within the uptown area. 641 were unrestricted. 3 of them were accessible. Now, there are some that are painted, but the paint was rather chipped away, so they were not counted as being accessible spaces at the time. There were about 8 no parking spaces, 21 10-minute spaces, 38 2-hour spaces, 14 2-hour spaces that had an additional time restriction to them. Parking spaces were measured based on a measurement of if they are sort of parallel, perpendicular, or angled to the road. Those that are angled to the road would have a 4.5 meter allotment for how much, or for that counting as a space. If they are parallel to the road, then that would be a 6.5 meter allotment. And if they're perpendicular, it would be a 3 meter allotment. We also looked at, of course, the off-street spaces. Now, they did change between our final data collection and our initial 2 data collections, but only slightly, as there were 4 EV charging spaces added for that round of data collection. Next slide, please. So we use a typical industry standard of 85% target occupancy. This is designed to allow people to have the amount of, or to see parking spaces that are available and not necessarily need to travel around the block. At the same time, 85% represents the opportunity that these spaces are adequately used. So we're not wasting space, and we're allowing people to be able to transition into spaces when needed. For example, if you have 20 vehicle parking spaces and 3 of them would be ideally vacant at one given time. Next slide, please. So we compared each one of the count days, and across the entirety of the day, we looked at the occupancies. So parking occupancy for the entirety of the area did not exceed our target of 85%, nor did it really come particularly close. Now, that is not to say that it did not come close in certain regions of the area, but on the whole, it was well less than the 85% target occupancy. Peak parking occupancy did occur at 2 p.m. in the summer, and we did notice that there was a large amount of difference between the summer and the other parking, or the other times we did data collection. And as you can see, it rather eclipsed the other 2. So everything that we talk about today will be in reference to the more utilized parking during the summer. Next slide, please. Now, we also looked at the sort of the street segments as well as the lots that were mostly occupied. These are the top 5 occupied street segments. So as we can see, Point Ideal Drive was very occupied at certain points of the day. Katza Place as well, Wellington Road, South Shore Road, and another portion of Wellington Road. They did exceed at times, especially on Katza Place, the target occupancy of 85%. But on the whole, these lots or these street segments were still below the 85% target occupancy. Next slide, please. As for the off-street lots, we saw the museum parking lot, Saywell Park, A&W parking lot, subway parking, and the Canadian Red Cross being our most occupied areas. Now, of note, Point Ideal Drive, which was considered our lot 1 in this case. Now, it does not show up during this segment, and that despite the fact that it had a largest volume of vehicles, it did not necessarily actually meet the occupancy for the entirety of the period. So it was very high occupancy at times, but for the most part, the occupancy dropped off enough that it was not part of the overall occupancy. Now, next slide, please. So this is a map that is showing the spatial analysis of where people were parking. As I made mention, people were certainly parking within the Point Ideal Drive lot. But as we can see from this map, the majority of parking is kept away from the residential areas and is primarily in the western portion of the study area. Next slide, please. Parking duration, once again, in this case, we do see that certain lots, specifically the Red Cross lot and the library lot, as well as the lot for the city or the village, the town hall, sorry. Each of those did have quite a high amount of duration when people were parking. And we have, although it's a bit difficult to see, outlined in red where parking restrictions were being ignored, shall we say, or not being followed as well as could have been by the people that were using them. In general, though, off-street parking or the entire study area only saw between 1.64 and 3.14 hours of parking with an average of 2.39. And for off-street, we saw 1.64 to 3.14 with a slightly different average, but we'll move on to the next slide, please. Oh, sorry. We did see a difference of duration between the autumn and between the summer. In general, the autumn saw that the off-street or the on-street parking was it was occupied for a longer duration compared to the off-street at the same time in the summer. However, during the within 2-hour parking spaces, we did see that the summer parking was overall more, it was occupied for longer periods, and in the summer, it had exceeded the 2-hour time restriction. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, the vehicle turnover, or as we call it, the VPPS, is measured as the number of vehicles parked over the course of the data collection period compared to the number of spaces available. Parking areas and segments with a higher VPPS indicate that more vehicles are turning over during that period. Now, VPPS it is important to understand that this is a relative figure, certainly relative to the study area, but definitely relative based on the land use of the park or of the area in question. So if you have a residential area, you would rather have a higher VPPS, or sorry, a lower VPPS than if you have a shopping district. This is because you want to have more vehicles turning over so more people can go and actually use the amenities in that area. Next slide, please. So as I made mention earlier, we did run our intercept survey of the people within the area on the days that we were there. We tried to get as representative a mix of people that we surveyed during this period as possible. So we certainly got a large number of visitors, but during the summer, we also managed to catch many of the business owners as well as employees, and several locals certainly were along for the summer. And during the autumn, we also managed to catch quite a few of the locals as we were interviewing people. So with the intercept survey, we saw definitely that, we saw that 85% of participants did not find any difficulty in finding a parking space during that period. And for the most part, we saw very few people actually experiencing the need to sort of go around the block, as we would say, or search for 5 to 10 minutes, or I mean, even fewer people had to search for 10 to 20 minutes in that period. Next slide, please. And in addition to this, overall, people were rather pleased with the parking as it stands. Certainly during the summer, we can see people were slightly less happy than during the autumn, but in the autumn period, people were incredibly happy with what had happened, and we got many people saying that they were very satisfied. Now, we did, of course, not want to interview the same people twice, which is one of the reasons why we see that business owners are not present as much during the autumn period. And with that, I'll pass it back to Tim. Thank you.
I'll move extending the delegation.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your patience. So next slide, please. One thing I wanted to just add to what Matthew said about the intercept survey is that, we did our data collection exercise, as Matthew explained, 3 count days. We got hard data, but the intercept survey really served as a way to get some qualitative feedback from members of the public and business owners and customers, et cetera, just to understand their parking experiences and their own, some of the challenges they experience with parking. So it's kind of 2 different data sources, but both are pretty rich for understanding the parking conditions of the uptown area. So what you see on the slide here is the strategy toolkit that we came up with, just as a framework to a framework around the objectives and the recommendations for the study itself. So as you can see, there's an objective in terms of what we're trying. The whole purpose of it is really to articulate what needs to be done with respect to parking management in the uptown area. We've got tools on there on the left-hand side, which kind of organizes all of the recommended actions into different thematic topic areas. And we also have a bunch of actions, which we'll speak to in a second, on the right side there, that sort of are organized by topic area. Next slide. So the objectives of the overall strategic framework are 4-fold. 1, maximize the efficiency of existing parking supplies. In other words, don't rush to build new parking when you already have plenty of parking available. It just needs to be managed differently. Provide a safer and more enjoyable parking experience. Number 3, develop capacity to manage and operate parking. And number 4, provide transportation choices to help minimize reliance on vehicle parking. Next slide. The 4 strategy tools that we'll get into. Number 1, on and off-street parking supply management. Number 2 is parking demand management. So really, again, focus more on the different tools you can do to help reduce vehicle parking demand. Number 3 there is road safety and accessibility. Really focused on how parking could really impact people's experience, whether they're looking for an accessible parking stall or trying to be avoided by a vehicle reversing out of a stall and being hit by that. And then number 4 is parking capacity and enforcement. So number 1 there, on and off-street parking supply management. So we kind of organize it as what is the challenge we're trying to solve and how can we address those challenges? So the challenge we're trying to solve here is there's a lack of delineated spaces, parking spaces, that result in drivers not parking as efficiently as they could, which reduces parking capacity and makes enforcement less effective. How can we address that? We can address that through having more defined parking spaces through painted lines, meters, stencils, and other forms of signage to reduce the risk of inefficient parking to manage that supply more efficiently. Next slide. So there's 5 actions associated with this strategy tool. You can see them up on the screen there, and I'm just going to speak to a couple of them. And before you go to the next slide, so essentially, we're here now. So action 1A, establish a parking restrictions framework. This is a really big one, and this is why I wanted to just spend a minute talking about it. You'll see it in the report. It is kind of changing the way we think about parking in the town of Lake Cowichan here and in the uptown area. Essentially, what it means is, as you can see on the map there, we're recommending a system of short-term, medium-term, and long-term parking restrictions, recognizing that some people only need to park for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whereas others require, parking for several hours over the course of the day. But right now, that isn't really happening, or if it is happening, it's happening in a very unofficial, ad hoc kind of way because the restrictions don't really exist. So as you can see on the map there, we've got some short-term our parking lots in areas with shorter-term restrictions, so 1 hour, 2 hour, for example. You can see, the pharmacy there, that lot, as a 2 hour restriction, for example. We have a 3 hour recommended restriction for Saywell Park, which could serve the needs of both short-term users, so people who are maybe visiting the uptown area, going to a cafe or another use, and it can also serve those who are tubing in the summer months, provided they're not planning to stay longer than 3 hours, because this all has to be enforced and managed properly. Otherwise, the whole system breaks down. And then we've also identified some long-term parking lots. So the one obvious one there is the one that Matthew spoke about, the Point Ideal Drive lot by the ball field there. Totally underutilized in terms of its potential. We know it's busy in the summer, it filled up, but we know that can serve, if it's actually formalized, it can serve as sort of an all-day parking lot for the uptown area. Next slide. So speaking of that, what you'll see, one of the actions in the report is to formalize that parking lot as a long-term parking lot. We did a little schematic here to show what that can look like in terms of a design, with roughly, in this case, about 100 parking stalls that are all delineated with your drive aisles, so you can get in and out pretty easily. That could be 120 stalls, 130 stalls. It can be bigger. The point of this is just to show that you have space there. You don't need to build a giant parkade that's going to cost millions and millions of dollars. You can pave that over with some stalls to actually have a long-term parking lot that can serve and meet a lot of the needs of the different users, especially in the summer months when it gets busy and people are looking to park all day. That seems like a very logical location based on our analysis. Next slide. So strategy tool number 2, this is more on the parking demand management side of things. The challenge we're trying to solve here is that the uptown area, put simply, has parking capacity. You don't have a supply problem. The challenge is that parking demand is not evenly distributed across a study area, right? In terms of what we saw with some of the maps that Matthew presented. You have lots of parking demand around Saywell Park, Catsa Place, but it's very underutilized in other parts of the study area. So how can we address those challenges? Using parking demand management tools can actually reduce demand for vehicle parking and better distribute that parking across the study area. Next slide. So there's four actions that we've recommended as part of this strategy tool: introducing paid parking, technology, increasing the supply of short-term bike parking, implementing the cycling priority projects that are in the town's active transportation plan. And I'll just speak to one example on the next slide, please. So this is the big recommendation you'll see in the report, introducing paid parking as a pilot project. Don't be alarmed. There's a lot of sound rationale for this, backed by our data, backed by best practices, research, et cetera. And I should say the rationale for this is that there's an opportunity here, again, to better balance the parking demand, especially in the summer months, between across the uptown area. Paid parking is a good way to do that. And also with all the time restrictions that we've recommended with short-term to medium to long-term, you can only really do that effectively if you have a paid parking structure in place. The other option is you just do enforcement, which is very expensive and can break down very quickly. So there's good rationale to doing it. And by the way, it can also raise revenue, which can pay for a lot of the parking improvements and recommendations and infrastructure that we've identified in the report. So what we're recommending here is establishing a base parking rate for hourly pricing within the recommended paid parking zone, as you can see on the map there. It would be in effect Monday to Sunday. It could be Monday to Saturday. There's obviously, these are just recommendations. Having it as a pilot in effect for 3 years from May 1st to September 30th, so in the busier season. exempting residents and employees from the program itself. And how you can do that is you can have a permit program that is established, as other municipalities have done this, so you can have a placard or a permit out on the dash, so people that enforcement knows not to ticket you because you're exempt from the program. And then enforcement would have to be done obviously daily to make sure that people are complying and et cetera. Next slide. With that, I'll turn it back to Matthew. We just have a few more slides here, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So once again, we're looking at road safety and what challenges we are trying to solve. Tim made mention that we are trying to avoid, of course, areas where congestion would be potentially adversely affecting people's ability to walk safely or to even drive safely. Now, in terms of this, better wayfinding means that people will be less likely to circle the block sorry, next slide, please. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. So we are looking to establish a design standard for accessible parking, as well as pickup and drop-off zones, implementation of sidewalk and crossing safety. Again, these are part of the ATNP. And implement parking wayfinding and signage. So as I was saying a second ago when I was getting ahead of myself, better wayfinding means that less people are likely to be circling the block looking for a parking spot, as that is closer to their destination, as they will now know where appropriate parking is more likely to be. Pickup and drop-off zones allow people to unload equipment and reduce the amount that they need to carry, which can potentially stop people who are walking about with large tubes obscuring their vision or other bits of bulky equipment, which could be something that makes them more vulnerable to an oncoming vehicle. And more improved pedestrian infrastructure, of course, reduces the number of people who feel that they need to walk along the roadway, as now they will have access to sidewalk infrastructure and other bits of useful signage. Next slide, please. Now, we would be looking in this case at one of the potential drop-off zones. Now, this is Katza Place off of the Saywell parking lot. Now, that is currently designated for drop-off, but this would make it more official, and we would look to have sort of a bit of a turnaround at the end, potentially, that would allow people to better avoid necessarily reversing into areas of traffic. This also could act to reduce the number of people who are parking illegally past this point, as there would be a bit more infrastructure in place to stop people being a bit creative with their parking decisions. In addition to this, we would formalize 12 drop-off and pickup places here, and each one would be signed adequately so people would know and not be able to make any mistakes as to their intent. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we would also look to add a pickup and drop-off zone. Now, these are for the existing shuttle buses that are traveling through the area. On this map, you will see that there are two identified zones for this. One is just south of the subway, which currently is an on-street parking spot, and the other is on South Shore Road there, where right now it's just south of the visitor center. We would also suggest with this that the intersection that is currently right there be turned into a roundabout. This would better facilitate the flow of the shuttle buses to allow them to drop off and pick up people from where they are potentially needing that service. Oh, sorry. Could you go back for a second? In addition to this, we would also potentially look at that northern one just south of the subway. We would still be saying that there would be a required turnaround, and that would also be facilitated through that roundabout and potentially taking a slightly longer route. Next slide, please. So, of course, none of this comes into place without a little bit of enforcement, allowing people to understand that they're not getting quite the free parking ride that they have experienced in the past. And so with this enforcement, people will be less likely to exceed the current parking current parking restrictions that they have currently been ignoring in certain areas. This would also reduce the potentially creative, shall we say, but undesirable parking that that has been occurring in some places, and would reduce, as I said a moment ago, the amount of time that people are parking illegally or in several of these areas. It also has the added bonus of enforcement officials being able to measure the effectiveness of several of the strategy tools that have been talked about already. Because if we don't have someone already looking at it, then we have no data to manage or monitor these proposed tools. And as a result, many of them are only effective if we get that parking enforcement happening. Tim, we'll pass it back to you. Thank you very much.
So just to conclude our presentation here, in the study, we do have an implementation plan that really outlines the who, what, when, and how much to help guide the town through the process of implementing the 4 strategy tools and the actions that we walk you through. And there's a time frame and level of priority, the role and responsible party in terms of the town and other parties that can be involved in helping support implementation. The implementation approach, is it through capital, operating, policy, regulatory, that kind of thing, and then a very high level cost. And if you go to the next slide, this just shows you an example of what we show in the study, some tables just to break down all the actions there, identifying all those components that I just mentioned, just to make it as clear as possible to help the town with implementation of the actual study itself. Next slide. So our final thoughts, based on the study that we've completed for the town, that we started last August. The study itself represents the first comprehensive assessment of parking conditions in the uptown area. We believe here that parking is often a victim of being perceived as bad or limited or hard to find, as people's experiences may shape their own perceptions of the parking conditions. Based on the data collection, there's a surplus of parking available within the uptown area, both in the peak and off-peak seasons. During the busiest hour of the summer weekend period, parking occupancy was at 48%, which is way less than the 85% occupancy target that we spoke to. Next slide, and this is our last one here. So therefore, in conclusion, the challenge is not overutilized parking conditions. Really, the challenge is that parking demand is not evenly distributed across the study area, with lots like Saywell Park and Catsup Place seeing much higher demand than other areas. So parking management, we know, impacts people in many different ways, and the town really has an opportunity here to rethink its approach to parking management and implement important changes to help make the area successful for many generations to come. And with that, thank you for listening, and we'll open up for questions.
Thanks very much, guys. Are there any questions from fellow councillors?
Through you, if I may, interesting data that shows the underutilization of the current spaces, which we did not, well, I personally did not expect. So when we're looking at 11.3%, for instance, in the 2-hour parking that was shown in one of the slides, and accommodating permits for residents and employees. Is there other jurisdictions that accommodate a payment for that permit, for instance? Because if we're seeing employees parked for an 8-hour shift, they're taking away that opportunity for visitors to come and utilize that space. So that'll be my first question.
Okay, I can speak to that first one. Thank you, through the chair, to the mayor. Thank you for that question. The answer, or based on what we've seen in other jurisdictions, for example, Tofino. Tofino has a paid parking structure that's seasonal as well. It runs from May to September, I believe, or October 1st. Residents in that case are exempt from the paid parking structure. I don't believe employees are, but they have permits, they get the permits, and residents, it sounds like park in areas that are less sought after because they know that's where where the visitors and tourists typically want to park. So they try to avoid those areas as much as possible. A better example, though, for you, Mayor, is in the town of Sydney, in Greater Victoria. There is a designated employee parking lot on the outskirts of the downtown core. So a bit of a walk for some of those employees, but they park there all day because they know they have their permit. They can park for 8 hours, not have to move their vehicle. And they don't park, more importantly, in the more sought after locations where you're going to have visitors and customers and that kind of thing. And those are in the off-street lots that are closer to the core and of course, all the on-street parking as well. And that model has seemed to work quite well because employees know that there's a designated lot for them and that's where they're expected to park. So they don't take parking away from other users.
Awesome, thank you. And one of the slides showed deliveries within the uptown core that can be very problematic for access and egress within those parking spaces. So allocating a drop-off area was part of the process that you looked at, for instance, in the food services delivery.
Let me answer first, then I can. Okay, thank you through the chair, to the mayor. Thanks for that question. We didn't, so I think, Mayor, you're referring to like commercial loading stalls. So we didn't talk about that in our presentation because there's so many actions to get through. And we wanted to just highlight a few. We do have recommendations in the study around commercial loading stalls and expanding those and having them in more defined areas with actual signage and restrictions, recognizing that commercial loading is critical for any small town to thrive economically. So we do have recommendations around where they should go and how long and how wide they should be in terms of dimensions. And that is in the report. And in short, Mayor, they're essentially recommended on South Shore Road.
And that's the major one I was looking at. I have had many complaints about that, but final comment, and it's not a question. First of all, very wholesome report, and I know you have a very wholesome report. I appreciate the extent of which you went through to get that. We know that we get anecdotal reports of negative aspects within our parking, but I think this shows that with proper delineation, with proper enforcement and wayfinding, that we're not even utilizing our 85% target numbers, even in a long weekend of August 3rd. And that is a similar weekend of a major music festival. So I'm glad you did it on that day. And to accommodate that is not a significant capital outlay. But my only point about permits for residents and employees is verifying that there is capital outlay for instance, the parking technology and the enforcement, and to not accommodate that within residents, I don't feel is a path forward, but that's just my personal opinion. If I lived in Victoria and wanted to park at Fort Street Parkade, I would be parking and paying. So that was the analogy that I utilized, but I appreciate that option because that has come forward as a possible way forward too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay. Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it. Matt, since the parking study's over, you going to return to rugby anytime soon? Or?
Well, maybe if they ever let me get out of the office.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Okay, next up we have Don Raymond from Raymond Construction on the new zoning in R3.
Thanks, Council, for listening to me today. Appreciate it. I've discussed at length at different meetings about the R zoning. I think everybody understands where we're at on it. And I realize it's going to take some time for things to move forward. Hopefully you make a proper decision in this process. And in the meantime, we've been told that we can do variance permits to keep the construction moving. And I'm wondering if there's any way that we can speed up the process of getting a permit through the variance program.
I keep pushing you off, but what we've got later on is down in reports. We have a report from our CAO and our contract planner, and in there's also some APC recommendations. So the council will make a ruling at that time on which way we want to go with it, whether we just want to take that report as information or we want to do the variance things. And there's also an option to do a variance and then change the bylaw as well. So at that time, we'll be able to give you more information. So that's coming up in 3 reports. One question I have for you, though, is the bylaw was changed in November last year. How come we're seeing a lot of builders come to us now? Is it a difference of how a contract planner is enforcing this, or why is it all coming down now, or is this just a popular time to pull those permits?
I only found out about it after the end of March when it was implemented. And I guess we don't actively check the websites or read the local newspaper. All we do is go to work and build houses every day. So it was a shock and a surprise to everybody that has responded to the new change. And I think if there was any other better way to inform the local builders or developers, in hindsight, that would have maybe been a different approach to, to inform the people that are in the industry and maybe get some input from them. And so basically it was an innocent mistake on everybody's part. I feel that, again, I don't look at the websites and I don't read the local newspaper. And that's how I was informed, how it was put out there in November. So I never learned about it, and neither did anybody that responded to it until March 31st when we tried to put in for permitting. So that's sort of my personal opinion on that's why we find where we are today.
Okay, so just the lack of communication is what the breakdown is there, eh? So
I think so, yeah.
thank you for that. So yeah, if it's okay, I'll push you down a bit further, and
Sure.
we'll make some decisions down there. Next up, we have correspondence. The CVRD on solid waste management service agreement. Who would like to talk to this? Is this Mr. Brown? He's gone. There we go.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this is just a renewal of the existing agreement that has been in place for quite some time. So it's brought to council for their consideration for authorization for the parties to execute the agreement as per the previous years.
I don't see a document attached to this agenda. Has this been shared with us another way?
Through the chair, I don't know if the mayor has received a copy or admin assistant Ronnie has a copy. I'm not sure, but if by all means we can share it with council. But it is the same agreement as per the previous years.
Ma'am, we're gonna go.
If I may, is this just a update from the expiration of the previous one? I'm getting a yes from our CFO. So through the chair to the CFO, would this include the updated fees that have been implemented in the solid waste portion of the regional district? There was some increases proposed and put forth at the CVRD board that were passed. So that would include those improved costings.
I haven't had a lot of time to look at it, but I believe it does include those, yes.
And finally, are we looking for a council resolution to accept the solid waste management service agreement? So I will move that we sign the solid waste management service agreement.
We have a seconder. Councillor Sandhu. Any discussion on this? No. I'll call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Moving on to reports, we have Director of Finance.
Thank you. The statements for April 30th are attached. The numbers now, the budget numbers have been finalized as the financial plan was approved at the May 6th special meeting. Also at that meeting, Corey Vanderhurst, who was the auditor, presented the consolidated financial statements. We received another clean audit opinion this year on those. They are now on the town's website under Municipal Services and Finance for anybody that would like to review them. We are now starting, or I'm now starting work on the 2024 annual report. If there's any pictures or anything that you would like to include, please send them my way. Tax notices have been mailed out. The last of them went out today. We wanted to get them out early in case there is a postal strike. There was a request from the audited financial statements for an itemization of how the COVID restart grants were spent. So that is there for your review and approval. Or actually, I don't need approval, but any questions?
Just through to our CFO. So the COVID restart grant, the funds for that have basically been used as a discretionary fund for the town. Would that be fair to say?
They've been used in accordance with what they could be used for, funding computer technology mostly, some costs for vulnerable and other staff and COVID costs.
Thank you. Any question? Man, we got to go.
I'm going to go to page 12. If I find it now. Bear with me, sorry. I'm looking at museum painting, which was budgeted in 2024 of $10,000. Looked like there was no actual spending within that line item. And then accommodating the budget of this year of $70,000. Was the 2024 $10,000 rolled into this year's 70,000? That's one question.
Yes, part of it was. There was a small expenditure. If you go there, I think you'll notice one side of the building was painted. He attempted to repair and paint, but it wasn't possible. So that job did not continue. It was a small amount, so it was expensed. And the rest of the money that was not spent, I think about was it $6,500, was rolled over into that 70,000.
So just to clarify, there was some expenditures in the $10,000. They are not showing as an actual expenditure. Are they shown in a
They were expensed as they were small.
expensed?
Yeah.
Okay.
They weren't shown as capital because it turned out not to be a capital project that was doable.
Okay. Thank you.
Then just piggybacking on that, I think the painting is actually siding in a whole bunch of work, isn't it? It's not just painting that we're looking at.
According to the superintendent, it was well beyond
Yeah.
Where it could just be painted and maintained. It needed more work, siding and windows, I think, not windows, but the window jambs and yeah.
And I know we discussed it during budget talks, but was there grants or fundraising that could offset that 70,000?
That's correct. That could be, depending on how the grant works out, they have applied for a grant, but that 70 could be the town's portion of a much larger expenditure.
I see. Okay, any more questions? No, we'll move on. Thank you. We have the building inspection report for information only. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, then we have the fire department report for April 2025. Do I have a mover for $11,487 and $87.39? Councillor Austin, seconded. Councillor Sandu. Any discussion? All those in favour? That motion is passed. Okay, now we get into the interesting stuff. We have next up is the CAO, Mr. Brown, on the R3 setbacks.
Thank you, Chair Frisbee. So in your package, I have put together a memorandum. Attached to the memorandum is also a memo prepared by our consulting town planner, Bridget Reynolds, that went to the Advisory Planning Commission at their meeting on April 24th, 2025. And as well, attached, you will find the minutes of the April 24th, 2025 APC meeting. So as pointed out by the delegation this evening, there has been a number of emails and inquiries received from both staff and council regarding the impact of the changes that were done in November 24th, 2024 to the zoning bylaw. And to answer one of the questions why it's kind of coming to light now, the building permits that have been applied for since that date are now being reviewed, and compliance with that zoning change in the setbacks, particularly in the R3 zone for single family and duplexes, has been noted as being having an impact on both the costing of the plans as well as construction. And there's also some complications with existing subdivisions where there's a building scheme in place and certain plans for single family lot buildings in particular on these lots is impacted. So the discussion portion of the document before you talks to quoting the particular section of the zoning bylaw that was amended in November 24th, 2024. So there was a number of changes to the zoning bylaw to basically look at densifying zones within municipality in accordance with the provincial requirement to change both the OCP and zoning bylaw. So this is one of the impacts that I don't think, in as was stated before, that between both the building community and the regulators, being council and staff, fully realize perhaps the impact of this one part of the change amongst a multitude of changes that were put into the zoning bylaw. So a particular point is highlighted at the bottom of page 1, where there's a requirement that the garage face shall in all cases be set back a minimum of 1.5 meters further than the dwelling front face. So in other words, the garage itself cannot be projected in front of the main part of the house, or even with the house. It actually has to be set back, which the builders have and residents who are building have conveyed to both the building inspector, myself, and the planner, and I'm sure council, the impact that this had for them. So the a couple of the members from the building community attended the Advisory Planning Commission meeting along with our planner. They looked at a number of options that could be considered, which included accepting the report and maintaining the existing regulations in the zoning bylaw. We can accept the Advisory Planning Commission recommendations that individuals be required to make application for a development variance permit for their specific circumstances. So this is what the APC at their April 24th meeting has recommended to council, is to do it on a case-by-case basis with the development variance permit application. The third option that staff is recommending to the committee is consider amending the zoning bylaw to allow for the standards for single detached and duplex dwellings in the traditional urban R3 zone to be similar to the regulations that existed prior to the November 24th, 24 zoning bylaw amendments. So there's 3 options put before you. The recommendation from staff is that council directs staff to provide alternative amendments to the zoning bylaw for consideration by council to allow for the standards for single detached and duplex dwellings in the traditional urban R3 zone to be similar to the regulations that existed prior to the November 24th, 24 zoning bylaw amendments. So that's the recommendation for kind of the mid to long-term solution. To answer some of the questions about the development variance permit, I've been talking with our planner today. We do have a couple of development variance permit applications that have already been made, and they will be put forward. We have to have a timeline with advertising and notice, for example. So we will be doing that for this Friday for the applications we already have that will be considered by council along with any comments we have from the public after the advertising period at the May 27th meeting. Please answer any questions.
If I could just clarify the recommendation. So you've recommended that we consider to allow for the standards for the single detached and duplex dwellings in R3 be zoned similar to before November 24th. Does that recommendation include allowing development variance permits
Uh,
until
It's,
that time?
it's kind of a parallel exercise. For the immediate solution, we've been telling the building community and then the public that they are welcome to apply for development variance permits. And they can do so. And as I said, if they were in this week, by Friday, we can advertise. They can be considered as soon as May 27th council meeting. The recommendation from the Advisory Planning Commission is to continue that process, to leave the zone the way it is. The recommendation from myself as CAO and in consultation with our contract planner is to do a longer term solution, which could take a couple of months, which is the public hearing, et cetera, that's required with a zoning bylaw, 2 readings, et cetera, another 3rd reading, and then adoption could take a number of meetings. But that would be a longer term solution, which would then eliminate the requirement or need to have development variance permits once the zoning change is in place, assuming that that's what council wishes to do.
Okay, so I'll just clarify for those in attendance. So the APC, the Advisory Planning Commission, has recommended that that the commission recommend to council that individuals be required to make applications for a development variance permit for their specific circumstances. So they haven't gone one step further with amending the bylaw. So we've got options of just taking that report and filing it. We've got accepting the APC's recommendation, which is to allow for DVPs. And then one step further is consider the zoning bylaw. So the recommendation is to change the zoning bylaw. And in turn, from what I believe is that people will be able to use the DVPs until that point. Have I got that all correct?
That's a very accurate summary, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor McGonigal.
I would like to move the recommendation that council direct staff to provide alternative amendments to the zoning bylaw for consideration by council to allow for the standards for single detached and duplex dwellings in the traditional urban R3 zone to be similar to the regulations that existed prior to the November 24th, 2024 zoning bylaw amendments. If I have a seconder, I'd like to speak to it.
Seconded by Councillor Austin.
And through you, Chair Frisbee, if I may, to our CAO. Currently, do you know how many DVPs have been submitted in the new R3 zone?
There's one that I'm aware of, and there's 2 others, but I think they're for different matters. So there's just the one that I'm aware of for the current situation.
No, there's 3 now.
3.
3, I believe, is
Okay, so the other.
now we're up to 4. So I'm just looking at the timing of those decisions as we move forward on the longer process. The advertisement for those DVPs is how long?
We have to allow at least 10 days between the publication and council's consideration. So if they're in now, we can advertise on Friday, which would meet the requirements for May 27th council meeting.
So that would accommodate perhaps a decision by the next council meeting.
Correct, for the ones that are in stream now, yes.
That are in stream now. And just to be clear, it's not to be accommodated on a application by application. We could do the group that is in the process now. So if there's 4 or 5, we could accommodate discussion on all of those, or do they have to be individually vetted?
Technically, they have individually vetted because the public has an opportunity to comment on each one individually and how it might impact them. If I could go further with the discussion, and this
But
is
you could do them as a block. So if 5 came, you could do all 5 in that one meeting.
correct, yes.
Thank you very much.
Just for clarification on the motion on the floor, do we have to include the ability for development variance permits, or is that just something that's within our scope already?
I think I can answer that. I think that's the only existing path currently provided. you do have an opportunity in any zone to apply for a variance. So this would be the option in the interim of the recommended resolution.
If I
And then also on the, oh, sorry, Mark.
if I could share, and it's somewhat related to the resolution that council has before them, but I would like to make sure that council is aware there is an opportunity, should you go with, for example, the Advisory Planning Commission's recommendations, there's still a fee involved, there's still a development variance permit process, but the task to actually issue the development variance permits could be delegated to staff, and that would streamline the process and not requiring them to come to council.
And once we finish this resolution, perhaps I'll give direction to staff on moving forward.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Oh, would you like to talk? Are you good? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that motion is passed. Mayor McGonigal.
And if I could direct staff to come back with a report on delegating authority to staff on development permits to not accommodate council consideration on those.
Okay, furthermore, so with this R3 setbacks being, as has been stated tonight, a mistake on all sides, with the development variance permit being $850, what would be the actual cost to process these? And the reason I ask is that, is there any way that we can discount these because we have made this bylaw and we are enforcing now? So I don't know if it's fair to charge that much on that. So is there any kind of, I know it's hard to throw a figure at it, but is there a cost to the town of Lake Cowichan for these, a cost amount?
I can maybe answer that. The ads in the paper can be anywhere. This is 2 ads required. From each ad can be $200 to $400. So you're looking at possibly $400 to $800 just in advertising. And then you've got the contract planner's time. So 850 probably doesn't cover the costs as is.
Is there any other discussion on that from councillors about a reduced rate on these permits? Councillor Sandhu?
I see your point on your concern of the error on part of council of passing that bylaw last year. But I also have concerns of not charging the proper fees for the permits. That's setting a precedent. And if the costs aren't as high as that, then maybe staff can look at that and come back to council. But I don't want to say at this table that we don't charge or we charge half. That's not to me, it's not for us to decide that right now without actual information to back the concern that you have.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I'd just like to report on one aspect to it. I don't think it was, I believe it was an error from council or the Advisory Planning Commission. There are some buildings that have applied for permits that do comply with the setbacks, but they knew that before they started, putting their plans together or purchasing the lot, for example. So if they were aware of it, you can build a house, obviously, that complies with the R3 regulations. So a number of these are in stream, and that's really what's impacted everybody. So the overall intent, I think, of the contract planner at the time that put all these changes together was to try and improve the aesthetics of the street frontage, the facades of the frontages of properties. So I don't think it was an error. It's just I think it was unintended consequences for those that were in stream.
Did you have something? No. Okay. So just on that, I do agree, but I do feel like I made an error by not asking the right questions. Like there was a lot coming at the time. I think there was error to not make us aware of the repercussions that this could have had. So there were errors made, especially on my part, with these setbacks. Where I was more focused on side lots and things like that, and I didn't even look into this. So definitely error on my part. Mayor McGonigal.
And I think part of the concern was that the purchase of these under the old regulations may have been accommodated by some purchasers and plans put in place according to the old regulations. And then in the implementation of the new updated bylaw, those plans and setbacks would not be accommodated in the new update. So there is no grandfathering within a zoning update, unfortunately. So that would be a need for improved plans that would align with the new regulations, possibly in upwards of $10,000 or $15,000 for architectural drawings, an increase in construction costs, et cetera. So we certainly heard from a number of owners and builders on the unintended consequences of those setbacks within single family and duplex. I do think it's a great idea for triplex and quadplexes to accommodate the off-street parking and the densification with that R3 zone. So I know that there's an argument for aesthetics, but there's an aspect of continuity within phases of subdivisions, for instance. So within phase 1, 2, and 3 to have regulations that allow 7.5 setback, and then in the R3 zone that is updated to have a differing variance could be aesthetically unpleasing, but that's just my personal comment. Appreciate the input and the staff report. Thank you very much.
Okay, so most of these points 4 are regarding the R3 setbacks. Just as the draft minutes of the APC meeting, I did notice that the APC rescinded plans for the code of conduct for the APC. So does that mean that APC members don't have a code of conduct currently and are not required? Just through to our CAO, maybe?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not in a position to answer that. I wasn't at the meeting, so I could again talk to Bridget, our planner, just to the discussions that would ensued on that matter. Sorry.
Councillor Sandhu, do you have any background on that? I'm sorry to bring this up like this. I'm just going through that meeting draft and I see.
I would actually like to report back on this at our regular meeting at the end of the month. Just, I need clarity because I don't want to say something that's incorrect.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't a gotcha. I was just reading the minutes. Next up, we have Mr. Brown, who's busy tonight with an amendment to property maintenance and unsightly premise bylaw.
Okay, thank you, Chair Frisbee. So as some background, back on the July 9th, 2024 meeting, the committee recommended staff be directed to include the Himalayan blackberry as a noxious weed in the town of Lake Cowichan's property maintenance and sightly premises bylaw. So the bylaw recommendation is to put a definition of noxious weeds to be amended, and the Schedule B to be amended by the addition of Himalayan blackberry as shown. So the town of Lake Cowichan recommendation by staff is that the property maintenance and the prohibition of unsightly premises bylaw amendment bylaw number 1050-2021 be amended with the consideration of the amendment bylaw number 1120-2025 by its first, second, and third reading.
I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I have vivid memory of already passing Himalayan blackberry into this already, with Councillor Vermarker voting against it because she liked the blackberries. This did happen last year, but we voted on it. Is this coming through from that? Was it a notice of motion or something like that from a long time ago? Okay, my apologies. I'm trying to, sorry, Councillor Austin.
Yeah, I brought this up because it's Himalayan blackberries, as you know, take over everything. There's a lot on some of our own town property that really needs to be removed as well. And I asked to have it put on here, whatever month that was. And I think our CAO at the time said he'd go back and look at the bylaw and have it changed and amended and brought back when in due time. So that's what happened there. And just note on there, if you will, broom is on there as well. And again, that's another noxious weed. And we have a lot in our town right now. We've spent 7 years working on it, getting a lot done. But if the town isn't going to take care of the broom and the Himalayan blackberries, it's going to be hard to keep this bylaw and actually enforce it. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and luckily we have provided Public Works, who are understaffed, with additional funding for another employee. So it is a tough thing to keep on top of these things. So I don't mean to take a shot at Public Works at all. They're in a tough position. Any comment on this? Oh, I guess I need someone to motion this. Councillor Sandhu, Councillor Austin. Is there any further discussion on this? I will call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Move on to Parks, Recreation and Culture, Public Access and Viewing Area at Pine and Prospect. Mr. Sandy was, oh, that was you? Okay. Councillor Austin.
I've been bringing this up since 2018 or 19, excuse me. It is a piece of property that's actually the end of Pine Street that goes right to the water, and it is a road allowance. And I believe our QEP has said it can be cleared to the edge of the water. You can't go beyond and do that. I've been nattering about this since then, and now the blackberry is so huge, it's going to be really hard to get rid of. So I do think Superintendent has some answers to that, but he has left the room. So I'm just saying this again, it's our property and we should be taking care of it if we're going to ask other people to do that as well.
My knowledge on the situation that there were Public Works staff there and they were chased off by the neighbours. So that's all I know on that. Do you know anything, Mayor McGonigal?
I will. There was some correspondence by the adjacent owners once there was some activity within the area, just some concerns on what was being accommodated there. So in the interim, I believe Public Works discontinued the work while myself and another councillor attended the property owner to vet the concerns that they had raised. My major concern there is the depth of the water within that access point and the possibility of liability should something happen. Of course, they're going to name everybody. So it is paused for the moment on that as we try to appease some of the concerns with the adjacent property owners.
Councillor Austin.
Sorry, I'm going to belabor this. It's not a swimming area. There's willow all along the bottom and it's a great drop off. So it's not, this is meant to be a cleared lot, which would be gravel. It's not a park. There's no benches going in. And you would have the rocks at the front with a wire through so no one can park there or cause any issues. It was when in the day when my uncle lived down the street, it was an open area. People would park their drift boat trailers there, which is not correct, and that would not happen now. Now, they now park them on Nelson Street where the neighbors don't really like that either. So there's nothing's ever going to be perfect in this world, and people will go swimming where they shouldn't go, but it's not designated a swimming area. It's a viewing point when people walk along, and that's all it's going to be. And once you get the blackberry out of there, which you do have to dig them out, it would be a nice clean area.
I'm certainly not going to get into a debate, but I think it's important that you at least listen to and deal with the concerns of the adjacent property owners before expediting any activities within there, and that is the process that we have implemented. I have had discussions with the superintendent and the CAO on this access and availability, which you're very passionate about, and I commend you for that, for bringing it forward many times in the past. We all have a passion for subjects and bring it forward to try to encourage each of us to see your point of view. And we can have differing views, which is the best thing about this job. We can disagree, but disagree friendly. And at this time, I'm disagreeing friendly with you.
Councillor Sandhu.
So can I just get clarity on what is happening right now and moving forward? I'm not quite getting, so maybe the superintendent could address it.
A while ago, we did, I got a QEP to look at it. We visited the site and we ran into some issues, so I've put it on hold until further discussions with the CAO and so we can resolve some of these issues before we move forward. It's on hold right now.
To me, there is only a limited amount of spots where we can view the river and lake from, and there's only a certain amount that are public. And I realize that some homeowners have taken over those spaces and have enjoyed them for years. But it's a little bit of a not in my backyard kind of thing when it's not their property. I'm actually on the same view as Councillor Austin, that even if it's just a viewing platform, we need to take back some of our property. It is in our APC to have more, I wouldn't say access to the river, but at least being able to view the river as people are encroaching on some of those riparian zones. I think it's important that we take back ours as well. I will move on from the subject if everyone's all right with that. Yes, Councillor Sandhu.
Thank you. Maybe the superintendent could send council just a memo, just explaining the process and why the decision was made when you made it, just so we're clear, because you haven't been clear on why. So if you could do that to council, then we at least understand why it's on hold. Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide you a memo.
We will stay with Mr. Sandhu on the progress of the sanitary sewer upgrades.
Our design is actually next week, we're meeting with the engineers to review the design. Again, there hasn't been a lot of change from last reporting. Another consultant's working on the environmental impact study right now, and that's about all right now.
Any questions on that? No, we'll move on. So the next one is actually the parking study report. So we'll move on from that. Number 3 is Strata VIS 2901 and manhole repairs. We have a document here that has been shared. Mr. Sandhu, would you like to speak to this, or is this just for information?
We can talk about it, or if you. So yeah, I'll just give you a little briefing. So earlier in the year, I think it was Bill Garrett from their Strata brought us a letter expressing some concerns. One is they're having road issues within the strata. And unfortunately, stratas are private property, so the town cannot get involved in that. So that part of it, the strata is going to have to deal with. The sewer system, the manhole that's in question, this came up last year, and Joe Fernandez and I discussed the matter. And what Joe had indicated at that time, that was that pipe work was installed for the strata and is exclusively used for the strata, and he felt the strata should be paying for it. So Bill brought it to my attention that particular manhole is on town property. So what I'm suggesting, maybe the town and the strata should split the cost. It is their infrastructure, but it's on town property. So, and that's up to mayor and council how to direct me on that.
Okay, should we wait for costs associated with that and we can bring it back in a report so we can, with a recommendation, so that we can rule on that? Okay, thank you for that. It sounds like a difficult situation. Next up, we have garbage and organic totes. We have a report here from, again, Mr. Sandhu. Oh, no, it's from the CAO. Would you like to speak on this? Mr. Brown?
Yes, I can certainly introduce a topic and Mr. Sandhu can add more to it. There's a need to get some more totes for garbage collection. Unfortunately, they're not available in the 80-liter size that we currently use. And the size that's available is 120 liters. There is a cost difference, and in our bylaw, there currently is the 80-liter totes at $126. The new bear-resistant totes are 120 liters, and it will be $201.15. So there's a need to amend our bylaw accordingly to order these totes, and perhaps just turn it over to Mr. Sandhu on why this availability is limited and we're not able to get the 80-liter totes anymore.
So this issue with bear-resistant cans, as you guys know, it's been going on for several years. We've had different groups come in and discuss it, BC conservation officers, etc. So the 80-liter cans we use, we cannot get them in bear-resistant. They just don't make them. To go to bear-resistant, we have to go to a minimum size of 120-liter cans. Those, we have someone ordered now, and we should be receiving them within 2 weeks. But my suggestion is, because we're out of the 80-liter cans right now, that we just completely go to 120-liter cans, bear-resistant, moving forward. Anytime a new build is done, that's what they have to use. The people with the existing 80-liter cans, they can remain with the 80-liter cans until a point they need new cans, then they would have to move to the 120 as well.
Okay, so what I'm reading here is this is a budgeted item already. There are no options apart from going to 120. Do you need guidance from council on this, or is this just for information? Mr. Brown?
I think if I could, through the chair, to Mr. Sandhu, I think in addition to the recommendation and the knowledge transfer, I guess, from staff to council of this, the availability of these containers, we'll need to amend the bylaw going forward. So this provides the background at the committee level. When you see a bylaw amendment coming forward for our fees and charges for the collection, you'll understand why.
Okay, so there will be an amendment coming forward at a later date. So there's no action required at the moment.
Correct.
Discussion, yeah, Councillor Austin.
Well, I understand some of this, but I would say that, certain people, a small household of 1 or 2 people like us, we never really fill our cans. So I still think there need to be some 80 liter cans available for those type of people. And only ones that are having problems with the bears maybe should be, allowing these ones or purchasing, because it costs a lot more money for the bigger tote. I just think it's unfair to like a couple or a single person living alone to have to pay for a large one when they don't need it. It's also a spatial issue. If you're supposed to stick it in your garage and we've already got the giant, recycling one and your organics, it may be a spatial issue. I think we still have to try and get some 80 liters. I understand the CVRD just purchased a bunch, and not everybody needs the bear resistant ones, I don't think. So
After speaking with Mr. Sandhu today, I don't believe that 80-liter beer-resistant containers are available to us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So are you suggesting we need to offer non-beer resistant 80-liter totes, or what is your suggestion?
for people that don't need the bear resistant ones, like we don't, there may be a new build or a little old lady that's, her garbage can blew away and needs a new one, she's gonna have to pay quite a bit more money, or a couple that doesn't use that much garbage. If you recycle, do organics and everything, you have less garbage. So I understand the bear ones. I'm liaison to the bear group, but this is also something I think people need to have an option. And if they don't have a bear problem, well, that's part of an option, but again, I don't think we should force a 120-liter one on someone that may not need it. That's all I'm saying.
So on the other hand, I understand the point of some people don't use the full, wouldn't use a full 120, but there's many people in town that overload their 80 liters and the lids are open and so the town is taking probably 120 liters, maybe more. And the town is having to pay those fees at our when we're at the dump fees, but we're not collecting that from anybody. So we're going backwards. It's costing the town dollars. So, you know, those people should be paying more somehow. And some people have come to us and they've asked for 120 cans. We've, you know, they've upgraded because the 80 is not big enough. But others are just leaving their lid up. We're getting water in the cans. We're getting birds and raccoons, and then there's a mess on the
Yeah.
ground, and my staff's having to pick it up. Or should we just leave it there?
Leave it there.
Who's going to clean it up?
Just, can I build on that, please? It's, if there's households, and I've got one near me like that, then they should be notified. I remember seeing pink slips on garbage cans before and saying, we're going to have to raise you up to the 120 liter because you're overfilling all the time. I really agree with that, because there's one near me like that. But if they're not doing that, you know, I forget what the pink slips were on before, probably leaving the lid off or something, yeah.
Councillor
Yeah,
Sandu?
we put them on, but a lot of people ignore them. So, and it just, yeah.
Councillor Sandu?
Thank you. So residents will have the option of keeping their 80 if they want, or if they want to go to the 120, then they would have to purchase that. So if I personally wanted to increase my garbage container, then I would pay for the bigger one. And what happens with my old one?
We right now, we take them back. We offer some money. I can't remember what the $35 or something. And we just store them in the yard then.
And we what?
We store them in our yard.
Thank you.
Yeah, but just to answer your question, yes, the people that have 80 liter can stay with them. We're not forcing new cans on them unless they want the bear-proof can. It's any new purchases. We're saying go 120 bear resistant because we have this problem in town with bears, and either we're going to correct it or we're not going to correct it, because we've gone over this for 3-4 years now and we talk about it, but nothing happens. So.
Mayor McGonigal?
Thank you. And I like the idea of a voluntary application of the process. My concern is those that choose to continue with the 80 liter, whether they be single family with 2 or 3 people that don't accommodate a full 80 liter. Should something happen to that 80 liter can where they have to replace it, I think there should be afforded an opportunity when those cans are available to stockpile a few and have that available for those who continue to want to use the 80 liter. I know that we have been also looking at our own ornamental cans throughout the downtown and uptown core on accommodating bear resistance within them, because they are problematic in the current state as well. So by leading by example on implementing that process and mitigating the bear interactions within some of those could be a publicity opportunity for those who are currently having concerns with bear interactions within their refuse. If you do compost, recycle, and do your other portions, I, as a family of 2 currently, but in the hockey season, sometimes up to 6, I have never filled my 80 liter can just because of the, I will say my partner is very adamant on making sure that everything goes where it goes. So I think there still should be an option if those ones, I was very politically correct on that, wasn't I? She may watch the video later, so I gotta be careful. So I think there still is a need, should something happen to the can that is currently afforded to the resident in the 80 liter model, that they're, when available, those should be purchased and stockpiled within the budget process for a replacement should something happen to them. So if the garbage truck comes with the arms and crushes the can and it's not usable anymore, I don't think it's fair that they have to automatically go to the 120 at the extra cost. So that's just my input.
No, well, that makes
Miss-
sense. Like if we crush their can, we can't be forcing them to get a 120. I agree there.
Ms. Gill?
Yeah, and I wanted to just state it's just not the can that you have to purchase that costs more. The can is a third larger, so your monthly fee would be a third more month. So it's a double impact to the resident.
Are we happy to move on from this and wait till the amendment comes down, or is there anyone want to motion anything at all? Councillor Sandhu?
So now we're being told that there's going to be an added fee to our garbage bill. So this is all kind of, we're getting pieces, a little here, a little there. So how about we put together a report and bring it to our next committee of the whole with actual breakdown of what it would cost and just all costs associated, what it's going to cost somebody. Like that this frustrates me. Now all of a sudden we're going to have to increase garbage fees on the bill. So I didn't know that. So let's get everything documented and presented to us, please.
I think this is frustrating for everyone involved, including staff, because they are following our direction to find beer-resistant totes, and they're not having any luck at the 80-litre thing. So this is frustrating for everyone, and as you can hear tonight, there are some concerns. So maybe we do give a direction to staff just to come back with some of those breakdowns. It would be good to know how much added cost there would be for those garbage fees, and break it all down for us so we can make an educated decision. Is everyone okay to move on from that? Thank you. Moving on to new business, we have notes of the public meeting. Is this just for information? Yes, was there any discussion on that? No, we'll move on. We have some late agenda items. We have a leave of absence for Councillor Vermarker. Would anyone like to motion that? Councillor Austin, seconded by Mayor McGonigal. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Next agenda item, late agenda item, we need council resolution to reimburse Mr. Brown for accommodations while attending in-person attendance as per his fee for service agreement. Mayor McGonigal, would you like to speak on this?
As that proposal came forward, it was agreed to that there would be additional charges as approved by council. So we have not made that resolution yet. And until then, I don't think that would be appropriate given the audit process and the need for a resolution to accommodate those reimbursements. There is a need for those remittances to come forward so that the town can get reimbursed for the GST portion, which have been accommodated. But with a resolution, we can do those additional charges.
Councillor Sandhu.
So I'd like to move a motion that our interim CAO be reimbursed for his accommodation costs while attending to the Town of Lake Cowichan business in person.
That's seconded by Councillor Austin. Sorry, were you saying that we shouldn't do this at this moment? Just for clarity?
No, we do.
We do, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
so there has to be a resolution
so
on those additional costs. So the auditor has a process of tracking those fees that have been remitted.
My apologies.
No worries.
I'm not
Without a
keeping up.
council motion, I don't think that can be
Okay,
accommodated.
this is the last agenda item, eh? Is there any discussion on this? I'll call the question. All those in favour? That motion has passed, and we have survived. Are there any notices of motion? Yes, Councillor Sandhu.
That we look at our sound system because I can't hear next to nothing.
Well, it's not just me.
In all seriousness, it's not working. Like when we have our CAO on the screen on Zoom and whatnot, even our mics, like we're either right here like this so that like I can barely hear my council at times. So I really think we need to look at our sound system because to me, it's not adequate.
Okay. Any other notices of motion? Okay, now we get to question period. So if anyone would like to speak, first of all, I'll tell you the phone number for anyone offsite, 250-749-3239. For anyone in person who would like to speak, maximum of 3 minutes per person. Get up and state your name and your question.
My name is Bill Garrett. I live on Lake Park Road here in town. When I submitted my letter to mayor and council regarding the road conditions on Lake Park Road, I attempted to give you some indication of what the costs are that I knew, i.e. the manhole that was provided by a contractor. The paving of the road, that was provided by Duncan Paving. What I don't know is what would be the cost to excavate the base, replace it and recompact it. As well as there is an issue along the Highway 18, a very deep ditch there, and I believe that's where the water is coming from. What's needed is a culvert. What I was requesting when I submitted that letter was a contact within the staff, but we could work together, possibly get an engineer to come out and take a look and either confirm or correct me on what I believe is the issue and go from there. Overall, we're looking at about a $500,000 project today. The longer it takes, the longer it costs. And I'm hoping that with an engineer's report, we can get the province to pay for this thing, in that the subdivision I'm in wasn't developed until the early 90s. My house was one of the first built in 1994. The Yubo intersection, however, was constructed in the late 90s, somewhere in 88, 89. At that time, Stanley Creek tributary ran down across the highway and right down the center of the road that I live on. In the process of rebuilding that intersection, the province put a culvert under the road, dug a 10-foot ditch along Highway 18, and moved Stanley Creek into its current bed. Over the years, because they didn't put a culvert in, it's just a sand ditch, it has found its way back where it was. And that's what's tearing up the road, and I believe that is the source of the water infiltration at the manhole, which has caused it to sag somewhat, causing breaks in the line and the issues that the sewage treatment plant is facing today. So once again, I would ask for a contact so we could work together on this issue. Thank you.
Can I just ask some follow-up questions? So this all may be accurate, but at the moment, I don't see anything council can do. Can this be dealt with at a staff level and then it come to us? I don't understand why we're getting reports on this. Is there a motion that's needed from council? Mr. Sandhu, sorry, I'm looking at you.
I can provide Bill with number of consultant names, yeah, if that's what you.
Well, I would like to work together on cost as well.
Well, like I said, it's a private strata. The town cannot get involved in private property.
Are you telling me that the manholes on
I'm going to move
McDonald
this.
are the
I'm just
same?
going to move this offline here, guys. So if we can deal with it at a staff level, let's deal with it there, and then we can come back to us if we can make a decision. But I'm not going to stand by while you guys debate what's going on,
Yeah.
if that's fair. So we'll put this to bed, and then the direction of staff is to deal with this on a staffing level. And if we can be of help at that stage, I'm sure we'll be very interested to help. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you. Is there an in-camera? Oh, sorry. Is there any other? No, no way. Not after that. Is there an in-camera portion tonight, Mr. Brown?
No, there's not.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Anybody, please. Councillor Austin, seconded by Mayor McGonigal. The crowd can vote on this too. Motion to.
Thank you, staff.
Call the
Thank you,
question.
Mr. Brown, for joining us tonight and guiding us along the way. We'll see you later.
Good evening.